A massive fire and explosion at this Manchester house in 2014 led to a sinister discovery inside. Bob and Connie Dion were found strangled, and their 38-year-old son had disappeared. An intense 14-month multi-stage search finally led to the capture of Matthew Dion. And tonight, WMUR's Amy Cavino has obtained his videotaped confession, which reveals a man with little remorse.
I wouldn't undo what I did. That's the sickest. They were great people, and I took them from other people who really enjoyed them.
Matthew Dion, in his own words, on the night of his capture by U.S. Marshals in Orange Park, Florida, June 3rd, 2015, the culmination of a 14-month search. Over 3 hours, Dion confessed to Manchester police detectives Patrick Houghton and Joe Mucci.
Why loud?
Because every single person has asked me, is it Dion or Dion? And those marshals were fast.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Oh, man. Like, I wish I could have seen it from, like, the bird's eye view of them stalking me.
He was pretty savvy, and he was on the run throughout this time. Took a lot of steps to avoid law enforcement detection. At
the request of Manchester police, U.S. Marshals in New Hampshire joined the investigation the day the homicides were discovered. But the first big break didn't come until 6 months later. One of the significant breaks in the case was that Matt Dion authored a letter that he hand wrote and sent by mail to the New Hampshire Attorney General's office. Dion confessed. Please be advised that I, Matthew Thomas Dion, of not sound mind, confess to the horrible patricide and matricide of my parents, as well as the destruction of the house. That letter steered us to Atlanta, Georgia, and there was reference to St. Petersburg, Florida. In the 5-page letter, Dion vehemently denies child pornography charges. Quote, I have never committed any type of child porn, never distributed, never sought it. I may be a sick murderer, but that headline hurt. In the plea deal, investigators agreed to remove the child porn charge in exchange for guilty pleas to 2 counts of second-degree murder and arson. Dion was sentenced to 60 years to life in prison. Another break in the case was the recovery of the stolen Nissan Altima out of New Hampshire. And that was in St. Petersburg, Florida.
My car broke down. My mom's car broke down. And, used her ATM card to withdraw $300.
Another crumb for investigators. And now Dion, who went by the name Cameron while he was on the run, burned a bridge with the family in Florida who'd taken him in. He stole a car, a handgun, more cash, and fled. Manchester detectives try to keep the focus on what happened the March day Dion set the house on fire.
I didn't even feel the guilt of what I did to my parents. I felt the guilt of what if one of those guys got hurt.
Dion, referring to the images he saw online of the massive explosion on Mooresville Road that blew the house off the foundation.
The highlight of that day was I had put gasoline everywhere. I had gasoline in the kitchen, and I threw the match, and I went to go open the door.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, like, the back of my head is literally, because it literally flames raced along the kitchen ceiling into the porch.
Robert and Connie were killed 5 days before the fire. Dion refused to say out loud how he killed them, but Detective Houghton offered him a pen and paper. Quote, I used a piano string cordage on my father attached to a bolt and a screwdriver for grip. After a brief struggle, I used a metal folding chair to strike blows to his head. I strangled my mother at the kitchen table with a green thick wire spool from the basement.
I have one more question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Tell me who won the hockey game tonight.
Who do you want to win?
I don't know. I guess Tampa.
Deputy U.S. Marshal Murrow created the wanted fugitive posters that were posted all over the country. The sign is crafted to communicate with the public and the suspect's ego. It worked.
In our hunt for him, that we were advertising him, so to speak, as a pretty intellectual individual who could play the piano and speak French and was interested in fine arts and the museums and photography. But at the end of the day, he was just another fugitive that had committed some pretty heinous offenses, and he made decisions that led him to being arrested. So how smart was he, really?
When Matthew Dion was placed on the 15 most wanted fugitive list, the reward money jumped up to $25,000. U.S. Marshals here in New Hampshire confirmed that reward purse was split among 3 tipsters who provided critical information that led to Dion's capture at the Astoria Hotel in Florida. Amy Cavino, WMUR News 9.